Hello, this is Michael Kuhn again with BlackBeltProject.com. In the last episode, we talked about your inboxes and making a detailed inventory of each inbox so that you knew where all of your work that was coming from, where you were going to channel it through, and how it was going to be processed. In this episode, we're going to start talking about where those items are going to go once you process them. The buckets, as he refers to them, David Allen, in getting things done. Now, I'm assuming you've got a copy of his book. If you don't, then I strongly encourage you to buy it, because inside there you're going to find a copy of his workflow diagram. Now, if you go to his website, you can also get a copy of the workflow diagram. It's free from his shopping area, and then you can print a copy of it out. I found it very useful when I first started and I was processing all of my paperwork to set the workflow diagram right next to me, and then, as painful as it was, take each piece of paper that came through my inbox and take it through the workflow diagram so that I could move it through the system. Now, on the workflow diagram there are several buckets, but today we're going to talk about one bucket in particular, and that is your calendar. Of all the buckets to start off, I think the number one bucket that you want to make sure that you get up and running initially is your calendar, because your calendar is a wonderful tool that you can pack a lot of information in. And the other items as far as your list and folders, you can run those by paper, electronic. Later on I'll tell you how to do those, but today I just want to talk about the calendar. Now, I never used to run a calendar myself, and I tried to remember everything, and most of the time I would do that, but as I got more and more things to do and remember, it became extremely difficult to remember everything that I had to do on a particular day. The calendar really solves that problem. Now, when you're talking about your calendar, you have two choices. You can do a paper calendar, or you can do an electronic calendar. And if you do an electronic calendar, it's a calendar that you can do online that might be available everywhere you go. My suggestion is that you use an online electronic calendar. The number one reason that I suggest that is because of recurring events. In your calendar, you can place things that happen on a regular basis electronically, and then it'll take care of itself. Or if you do it by paper, then every time they come up, you have to record them, and then also you have to remember to record them. When we think of recurring events, the first thing that comes to mind would be birthdays and anniversaries that you might want to remember for people. And each year, at the end of the year, you could start a new calendar and you could write all those down. But if you have an electronic calendar, then you never ever have to rethink that. And you always know that your system is going to remember that for you. Those aren't the only recurring events that you have. Bill payments, tax deadlines, regular maintenance things you want to do. Your calendar is a wonderful tool to use to help you remember a lot of the things that need to happen on certain days. If you use an electronic calendar, in addition to it being available online, if you use an online calendar, which I think that you should, it can also email you reminders of all the things that you need to do on a particular day, the day that it happens, a couple weeks before, whatever you need ahead of time. It can email you and let you know that you have to do those events. The other benefit of having an online electronic calendar is that it's always available wherever you go. So it makes you extremely portable. If for some reason you need to take a look at your calendar, if you don't have it with you for some odd reason, you need to have access to it on the internet or by your phone, you've got it everywhere that you go. Now, if you're the kind of person that needs to have a printed calendar, and I used to be that way, I wanted to have the calendar in front of me so I could see everything at one time, you can sync your online electronic calendar to Outlook, for example, and you can print your calendar out from Outlook and still have your printed calendar. I know I used to do that every week when I did my weekly review until I got a BlackBerry, and now I just sync my BlackBerry every day to my calendar, and I've eliminated the paper calendar, and I really don't miss it that much. But the calendar is going to be one of the most useful buckets that you have that can help you remember a lot of the things that you used to have to remember in your head and take away a lot of the overhead that you were trying to remember. Personally, I use Yahoo Calendar. It's a free tool that you can use. You just sign up for it with your Yahoo ID. Many people use Google. There'll be people that will argue that Google's better than Yahoo. I started out with Yahoo, and so it works, and I suggest once you get something in your system that works extremely well for you, that you don't screw around with it. You leave it exactly the way it is if it works as intended. I didn't start with Google right away because it was in beta, and I didn't trust the fact that it would always remember everything. And in fact, when I first used Google, I had that issue where I didn't get email reminders, and now for some reason I still have that calendar out there. Those started coming. So for some reason that was an initial glitch for me, and so I did not use Google's calendar. I went with Yahoo. If you're an Outlook user, you can use Outlook, and if you're on an Outlook Exchange server, that's great. Your work might dictate that you need to use Outlook. Whatever you have to use, do that. But if you got the flexibility to choose your own calendar, personally I would go with Yahoo. Of all the things on the workflow calendar, start with the calendar section and get your calendar set up, because that's going to be something that's really necessary for processing your system. One last point before I close today. On these buckets and on your inboxes, if you haven't figured it out, I've suggested that you start with an empty system rather than having everything clog into it, because we're going to start pushing that stuff through the system once we get everything set up in a fashion that we know is going to be to our liking. So in the meantime, go to BlackBeltProject.com, and thanks, and have a great day.